everyone. Welcome to Words Matter, not content, a conversation. So today, our topic is conversation fatigue. Do you know anything about that, John?
Only a little.
Oh, okay. Yeah, same. I just know a tiny bit about it. So may have experienced it once or twice. But so conversation fatigue is something that can happen even in really meaningful conversations. So basically, a conversation just goes on for potentially way too long, and either one or both parties start to become disengaged, tired, not really on the same page about like solving whatever issue you were set out to solve, and it starts to become less and less productive. So
Totally.
That's my definition of conversation fatigue. What do you see it as?
Yeah, I think I see it very similarly. It's just like, at what point in this conversation is the conversation no longer a conversation? It's literally the easiest way to say it, I think, right? It's like I've just continued, almost like what I'm doing now. I'm over-explaining. I'm overdoing these things. And some people need that and some people don't. And I'm one of those people I love to talk about my relational intelligence and I can tell and this and all that, but I cannot when it comes to this because I just want to belabor the point like crazy because of course they need me to and this and all that. And it's like, get out of your fucking ego. And so conversation fatigue is literally that when you can't see yourself over talking and you're tiring the shit out of that person. That's kind of what I see on either side of it, right? Like that's kind of what I see. And obviously, as we always do on the show, there's multiple lenses in which you could use for an example. So what do you think is a good example of a lens of seeing it?
Yeah, so one lens would be like yourself. And so understanding, I think maybe more from my perspective as someone who gets conversation fatigue pretty easily, is the signs. And so being aware of what it looks like when you're getting fatigued and disengaged and tired and not productive in that conversation anymore. So,
and what does it look like for self-conversation fatigue? Like how does that, like through that lens of self, like...
Oh, it could just mean that me and you are having a conversation and I'm suddenly becoming aware that I'm like backing away and my body language is shutting down, or I'm like, hey, I know this about myself. As soon as I start feeling really tired and like I'm not listening anymore, I probably am feeling that conversation fatigue and should potentially readdress this conversation another time. So it's just knowing those like signals and signs about yourself so that you can then communicate them to your partner or ask about them, vice versa.
Okay, yeah, I viewed that a little differently for myself, but I love that. Okay, I'll go in. For me, when I think of conversational fatigue, it's like I have multiple conversations an hour with myself, and sometimes I belabor the point to myself, and it's like, we could also call that overthinking or like these kind of things. So that's kind of where I went, but yours makes total sense in every way.
Yeah.
Another lens I would say is professional, right? How many times have you been in a fucking meeting where the guy won't shut the fuck up about something that is literally a 5-minute email? And they want to bring it in here and they want to talk and talk and talk and talk. And to be fair, the first 5 to 10 minutes was really good. Like we got a lot out of it, but then you wanted to just belabor it and belabor it and belabor it until it's like...
We've been here 2 hours.
Like, why are we here? Like, bro, I just want to go watch my friend play T-ball or some shit. Like, what are we talking about?
T-ball? What the fuck? How old's your friend? 5? T-ball. Okay. Weird.
I meant to say I want to go watch my friend's kid play T-ball, and I just missed that portion.
Just friends.
It's not creepy at all. No Diddy. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Yikes.
No,
okay, maybe let's go for a third.
I
Can we go for a third lens?
But no, the professional one I just want to add on because that shit is so real, and you're looking around at everyone's faces and they're just like dead inside. It's like those energy vampires. If you watch How You Met in the Shadows, but
totally.
Yeah, that one will get you. So I think
that one will get you.
And there's not much you can do about it because it's like your boss talking.
This is why I was not good in corporate because I just stood up and left. I swear to God, in those moments, I'm like, hey, the person, and
I'm out.
Email me. I've got to. And they're like, and like, usually my bosses are cool with me. They're like, where the fuck are you going? You got to stay in here with me. I'm like,
I was always the one that was you've seen me do this in conversations where I'm like, okay, but if we could just summarize the final points, like and then I'll be like, so it sounds like we've got like.
We could do 20 episodes on your behavior inside of a conversation alone, bitch.
I know.
One of them would be the faces. Anyways, y'all will get to know Brescia as this goes on, but yes, she can't control her face. That's a thing.
Okay.
Anyways,
okay,
yeah.
Okay. That
give
one
us
obviously
one
struck
more
a chord.
lens.
The platonic one.
Platonic, great.
Yeah. Platonic, I think, conversation fatigue, an example I have is like you have a friend who's constantly coming to you and talking about the same thing or the same issues over and over again.
Totally.
And don't really check in with you about whether you're ready to chat about them. And then they go on, potentially with no solution or end in sight. And that can lead to conversation fatigue within a friendship. Like, gosh, we've talked about this so much.
1,000%.
One-sided, potentially.
I think that's the one we should probably unpack today, right? I think, okay, so let's get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do we think that conversation fatigue happens? And I think I want to start with what you just said, because I thought it was very significant, is like they didn't check in to see if you had space for this. I think maybe we should unpack that part first, because that's a concept that is... It shows how much you care about the person. It shows that you're thinking of them. It shows emotional intelligence, right? Yeah. But to have this level of understanding of like, this person may be busy and I'm about to bring the same talking point and topic to them that I always do. And I am so guilty. Holy shit. I am not casting any aspersions or any shade on anybody.
Well, we want to be able to talk about shit over and over
I
with
have
our friends. Yeah.
Right? We're afraid to make the decision, whatever it is, and we feel safe enough to come to that friend. So that is an absolutely beautiful exchange. But yeah, I think what you said makes a good point. Did I reach out to make sure you're in the right space to be able to have this conversation? Anyways, conversation fatigue. Why do you think it happens?
Yeah, I think it happens because, as we just mentioned, you're not in the right headspace. Or I think it can also happen when, for me, it starts to feel like there's no end in sight. And so an example in the platonic one is where it's like, okay, we keep rehashing the same thing. Like you're always talking about, let's say, your friend's always bitching about their coworker and their relationship with their coworker and unloading it on you. And you try to help them solve the problem. You know, you're trying to help them reach a conclusion. And there's just never an ending. There's never like something to, an end in sight for those things. And I get that not every situation in life leads to like a tidy bow at the end, like, oh, this is perfectly solved now.
Wouldn't that be nice?
But it can feel a bit exhausting. You're like, I've given advice, I've given perspective, I've listened, you've taken none of it, and now here we are.
So I feel
that can be tiring.
Fucking attacked.
Because I do this too.
Yeah, this is fucking the thing, right? And so, like, I think, I haven't even told you yet, but another episode topic that I want to do is kind of this topic I'm about to broach right now because it makes sense to this episode, which is you sent me something the other day on Instagram that is still with me, and it speaks so much to what you just said. In that graphic you sent me, it was a person, it's me with a speech bubble that says, I talk things out to process. And your speech bubble said, I process so I can talk things out. Holy shit. Yeah. Right? That's a whole episode. Expect that soon. So like, that's exactly why this conversation fatigue, I think, can happen. Because you just said it. You're saying the same thing. There's no end in sight. There's this and all that. That's because we have two different communication styles. Yeah. I am not talking to get to a solution. You're talking and listening to get to a solution for me or offering me a space. Yeah. So much space. In my brain, I'm talking just to talk. Because talking helps me think of multiple vantages and multiple perspectives. Yeah. And that being the case, if I'm approaching it in that way, there is no end. Yeah. Even though I've said A, B, C 400 times. Oh, we finished C? Well, that just brings me back to A. And you're like, bitch, there's only uppercase and lowercase. There's only so many A's. Like, how many fucking A's we going to do here? And I'm like, well, yeah, but if we add it in another language, right? So then I think that could potentially cause fallout.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like the repercussions of these moments of conversation fatigue is that maybe me as the friend who's listening in this case wants to disengage. And maybe I'm less likely to take your phone call next time or respond to your text as fast, or maybe I'm not going to give as much like to the conversation.
Asshole.
I know. Rude. Evil. Me?
Evil.
No, but you're preserving your own energy to some
Of course,
degree.
protecting
And
your
so
peace,
there's
right?
and then there's balance to all of this. Like we want to show up to our like for our friends and like relational intelligence, knowing when you need to do that. Like, oh shit, I know we've talked about this 600 times, but you're totally in your feels about it today, and I absolutely need to show up for you in this moment. Versus like a more casual version of the conversation and being like, hey, maybe there's a moment I can
Totally.
preserve my energy. But regardless, like the fallout just being that potential disconnect and moving apart from each other, confusion on, again, we're using you as an example, on your end on why I'm being distant all of a sudden.
Well, that's what I was just about to say, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the 3 pillars of the show, we talk about it all the time: emotional and relational intelligence, and the third one is vulnerability. And in this scenario, I'm showing a lot of vulnerability by coming to my friend to have this conversation, right? I need to talk to my friend. My friend is showing up for me and giving me space, and I'm opening up, right? Because I feel safe. And the fallout on my end is that I lose some of my safety because you need to protect your peace, which is fully understandable. And as your EQ develops, you start to realize, okay, it's not that it's not safe. It's just that I've talked their fucking face off, and they need a break. Bitch, this is not about you. It's about them, and they just need. And like, you start to get to that point eventually, but initially, yeah, the fallout is like maybe you don't feel safe. Maybe you don't feel like you can confide. Maybe you don't feel like
Heard,
seen, cared for, understood, all the things, right? So there's that. Do you have any personal experiences of conversational fatigue? It seems like you have quite a few. Maybe just choose one of them, bitches. I'm not allowed to be in your example.
Okay, yeah.
No, you can if you want. Listen, we all know that John likes to talk. It's what he does for a living, okay? So listen, I understand. If you want to use me, by all means, but maybe you could use somebody else too.
I think I want to go for like a super light example.
Oh,
for us.
okay.
And like this is
First.
like, first in general. I think a good example was the other day actually when you were, and again this is
Okay.
I can think of conversation fatigue examples that for me are just truly like number of hours we're talking. Like when someone puts me in a conversation for, this is old John though, for like 6 hours, I'm like, bitch, I'm done. Like I'm totally checked out. But this example is less about that. It was more about, you were on like a tangent about all of these like really minute details about the podcast and editing, which obviously I'm very excited about and love, but I had really no like visual or context, and you were just like talking to me about them for like kind of a long time, and I had nothing that I could add to the conversation. And there was a million things going on, and I was just like trying to be present, but also was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm going to challenge this. This is not fatigue. This is confusion.
I was fatigued. No, it wasn't confusion. I knew that I wasn't confused about what you're saying. I just was like,
You're over the conversation.
Yeah, I was fatigued.
Basically. You're
I was fatigued.
You're exhausted because you had to think about all these things that you have no idea what they are.
Yeah. You're like, and then I double clicked this and put it, and I was just like, bitch, we're not even looking at a computer. But this is a super light example and maybe not even the best one I could have given. But there was an element, though, where I was starting to feel checked out. I wasn't listening anymore. And it was because I couldn't engage fully. Like there were a lot of things going on. We had talked already about 600 different things. Remember?
Yeah. So if I remember right, this was at the tail end of like a longer conversation.
Yeah, a longer, not like an hours and a half conversation. And then it was all these minute details, and I could tell. I was like getting tired.
That makes sense, because I'm bringing up some really detailed shit at the end of an hour and a half.
That I can't even fully engage on. And I was just like, I hear you, and I love all the work you're doing, but I have no idea what you're talking about, and I am not engaged anymore. And I said it like exactly like that because John and I have a rapport.
Yeah, which is great. Like we don't take it too personal at some
Relational
point.
intelligence for me and you, maybe
100%.
Not the approach for everyone. So again,
once you get to a position in your relationship.
A light example though, like in all seriousness, I did recognize those in those moments though, and I did say something to you.
Yeah,
like I was like, hey, like I am incredibly proud of you and all the work you're doing, and I know you're all in the weeds, but I'm completely disengaged because I haven't been part of this process, and we've been talking for an hour.
You got no idea what we're talking about.
And then you said, okay, totally. And then we moved on, and I appreciated that, and that was the end of the conversation. And then we talked about it more later.
Foreshadow to the articulate part of the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's like a lighthearted example, but...
Okay, well, I guess my personal experience is we kind of touched on it, but like I want to add to it, like as the person who's always over talking, we'll leave it there. Just, like,
in fact, I won't over talk right now.
Fuck that. No, like as the person who tends to over talk, it sucks. Like it does suck to know that happens because you're really just trying to. What I call it is dummy proof. I call it like dummy proofing a conversation or dummy proofing the topic or the statement that you're trying to say. Not that the person is not intelligent enough to understand. It's that I like to make something so simple that anybody can understand at any level of understanding and comprehension. So with that comes more detail. And like, that's just the Gemini and that's my fucking Virgo moon is like, hey, details. You
get excited to share.
And I get very excited to share and all those things. And so you want to tap into all of it. And I guess my example from the experience side is that when that happens, when somebody is like checked out and you can see it, it fucking sucks. But you have to find a way to steer into that crash and you have to say something about it because if you don't, it can eat you up. You can feel like shit about it. You can leave this conversation. And we'll get into that later about like how to explain or articulate those thoughts. But it can be shitty. And for anybody else who's out there like me with conversation fatigue giver, if you will, we meet on Wednesdays.
Everyone talks at the same time and no one listens.
There's a 7-minute cap to the Zoom.
Everyone just word vomits everything.
Oh my God, imagine. It's just, okay, moving on to the next thing, which is recognition. Let's get into the recognition with the life coach, Miss Pressure Hardy.
So from an emotional perspective, it's taking a minute to get in tune with how you're feeling. And so similar to what I've said before, if you start noticing that you're disconnected, disengaged, impatient, I think that's another one that maybe I haven't mentioned where you're trying to hurry the conversation along.
Totally.
Those are moments to think, okay, I may have like reached my limit potentially. I think physical signs, this is even hilarious to say, but literally yawning. Just like you're tired. Like you're just physically tired, yawning, like not, again.
Please disregard any yawns that I've had in this show. I just never sleep.
He's bored. He's fatigued. And so, yeah, this like desire to kind of zone out in general, like you're not even focused on what they're saying. I think the other like sign is if your answers are starting to be really short. Like, you know, because it's one thing to just mentally not be there, but now not even.
Because you're trying to be done.
Yeah. It's like.
You're not trying to sustain this.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we should, yeah.
That's what you want to do?
Exactly, yeah. All of a sudden, that's not a dialogue. Like, you're just appeasing the other person.
I'm just an
to,
idiot.
like, allow them to kind of keep going, but you're not engaged at all. And so, I think,
totally.
Again, if you're in a conversation where you're trying to accomplish something or come to some sort of agreement or conclusion, like, at that point, you almost can't because the other person's they don't have any input.
And they're not engaged, yeah.
Exactly. And so, I think this also can sometimes be more obvious where you're just truly starting to like set boundaries, where you're starting to say things like, I need to go to bed, or I think we should talk about this another time. Like literally just starting to say that stuff and be like, okay, like really needing to make it loud and clear for the other person. We'll get more into that like communication aspect of it. But
sure.
I think those are some of the main ones. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, just from the other side of it, right? Mm-hmm. As the person who's the one dealing it. There are things that you can notice. Yeah, when they check out. Mm-hmm.
The light's gone.
Yeah, I think something to note is the light's gone.
They have literally turning the lights off and like
that's fucking hilarious. No, I think there's something that you can be paying attention to as somebody who's speaking. You should start looking to see if they're still engaged. You should start paying attention to those things Because if you can notice their conversation fatigue, they will notice that you've noticed. That will go so far. I've done that with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's clear that she's checked out. Hey, we'll have this conversation another time, blah, blah, blah. And like, so those things.
And reminding yourself of the goal. I was just thinking about that. Because again, the idea is we both should have the same goal at the end, right? To come to some sort of conclusion.
Well, hopefully, because like we said earlier, when we were identifying it could just be different communication styles. And like, I think, like, okay, I think you've really highlighted the recognition part, but I think I'd like to add a tip.
Okay.
Before we get into the communication part.
Solid start.
Yeah. Before we get into the communication part of it, I want to add a tip. I think something that I've learned specifically, not just with you, with a lot of people in my life, is before you get into a place of a conversation with real depth, something that like you really want to talk about, ask them how much space they have. Ask them how much time they have. Hey, what's your day looking like? And this is something we noted at the front of the episode, right? Like
Yeah.
we talked about this, but it's like that can go so far.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to chat with you about my ex. They're still on my fucking brain. I know you've heard this a million times. How much time do you have? Announcing that to your friend who has remembered the conversation fatigue every time you bring up the ex gives them the opportunity to say, I'm here for you. I got you. I only got 15 minutes though.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you could add to the same question or is saying like, I want to talk about my ex. They're still on my mind. I just need to vent versus
100%.
I'm looking for input. Because it's like, okay, you just need to vent. Then I can get in the headspace for like just listening.
Set that table. Yeah.
Whereas if you're asking for input, that might require more from me. And I want to make sure I'm ready to get
Too
that.
often do we accidentally set a table that people have no choice to sit at? How amazing is it to intentionally set a table and ask people to sit at this table with you? It's much nicer and much easier, and it's much more effective.
And you're on the same page because that, again, is the person that sometimes is like, when is this conversation going to end if it's been going on for too long? But if you set the expectation that it is just venting or it's like solution-oriented, that helps me kind of direct it where I need it. Like, not where I need it to go, but like stay on track, I guess.
Yeah, just protecting
and understand what the
peace.
end looks like.
100%. Agreed.
Solution, or is it you're just like done? You know?
Yeah. Do I want perspective?
Yeah.
It's not maybe it's not a solution, but it's just another approach. Or you didn't think of it this way, or specifically like man, woman. If you're engaging with another man, and you may want a male perspective, call a different guy because I tend to lean a little bit more in the middle. So anyways, let's move on to the communication parts of like how we effectively tell somebody that I'm too tired, or the reversal, as I like to do both sides.
Yeah.
I can notice that you're a little out.
Yeah.
The light's off.
The
light is
lights
out.
off. Yeah, okay. I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool.
Talk about the communication part.
For sure. So if they are the one fatigued, I'll start with I. If I'm the one that's fatigued, you've been talking and I'm like, the response that I would go with, and again, these are always just examples. None of this is law. Like, who are we to say, right? It's just experience that we're adding into the mix here. Something along the lines of, wait for a break, don't interrupt. Don't be like, hey, I need you to shut the fuck up. Don't do that. No, wait for a break and be like, I hear you. I'm kind of nearing the end of like my capacity to be able to respond in a way that I feel good about. As your friend, I want to show up for you, and I don't like to half-ass that. You mean a lot to me. This topic fully means a lot to you, but I feel like we're going around in circles, or I feel like there's just so much to process, and I can't properly process at the level of conversation that we've been having. I need a break. Maybe can we just stop talking about this for a bit, go get some food, and then we can pick it back up? Or maybe if it's kind of late, maybe you could be like, hey, can we just pick it up tomorrow? Like, I kind of need a break. I hope that doesn't make you feel some type of way, but I'm also just wanting to make sure that I show up in the best way I can for my friend. And I think what that does is it shows them that you care about them. It's not just about you. And you care about being a good friend.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how you set that up. If we are now doing it from the other way around, where I'm noticing that they're getting fatigued. Hey, I appreciate you listening and showing up. I realize that I lean on you a lot.
I'm acting.
I realize that I lean on you a lot. And I got to tell you how much I appreciate that. But it's clear to me that you're starting to check out. I'm not mad. I understand, but I think that we should probably pause this because I don't want either of us to get into a level of frustration that's going to, A, cause some other kind of situation for us, and B, not really help me. And then I start attaching the fact that there was no real help or real listening or being seen or anything to this conversation, which could have detriment later. I think I can see it. You're kind of checked out, and I just want you to know it's okay. I'd love to pick this up at another time if we can, though, because I still have things I want to talk about, if that's okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I was just thinking while you're saying that.
I saw your brain computing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, well, because we're taking this from a place, like, that response, perfect. If you're feeling, like, calm and you've recognized everything, and you're like, oh, but I'm not angry. But what if you are angry?
If you're angry.
Because you might be, or you might start feeling, like, in a perfect world, you recognize it early enough to cut. You recognize that the other person's checking out and you can cut it off before you start feeling those things. But what if it's kind of too late and you're starting to feel angry or like sad or dismissed? Like, I guess, what would that person do?
Okay, I'm the angry person. Like, I'm the one giving the fatigue.
Yeah, giving the fatigue and you've waited too long and now you felt the fatigue for a while.
Or they're just checking out and like.
I'm checked out and you're like starting to get frustrated.
Yeah, I'm like, why are you fucking checked out? Okay, so yeah. I think, again, this is when emotional intelligence really, really plays a part. The first thing that you want to do is not react. You want to survey the situation, sit with your emotions about how you feel, why you feel that way, and then articulate them. Right? And so, like, this whole show is about communication. It is about how can we get our point across in a healthier way. We are trying to bridge the gap in a world where there's so many communication platforms, but nobody's talking. That's what this show is about, right? And so in this, I want to say that you have emotional intelligence enough to say that you're not going to react and like, God damn, every time we do this, none of that. You want to get rid of that because that's not going to give you the response you want anyways. It's not going to get anywhere. So, hey, listen, I can tell that you're checked out. I wish you'd show up for me right now. I understand that I'm probably a little elevated right now because I do feel some type of way. And there's passion in my voice. There's a different kind of tone because I need my friend to show up. I understand that you're like tired of hearing it, but I need 5 more minutes. Let me find 5 more minutes in me and get it all out. And the reason I say it like that, and this is from straight up experience, because again, I talk a lot. I've probably talked too much in this damn episode, but I've learned that when I put a time on it, it now makes them feel safe.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Hey, all I got, how many times have we been out in the cold? It's fucking freezing. You're walking somewhere. You don't have a car for whatever reason. And you're walking down the block and you don't know how far you got to go. And you're just like, God damn, it's cold. But if you knew it was only 4 more blocks, you wouldn't be as cold. Like like in your brain, you're like, I only got to go 4 more blocks. Same.
Absolutely.
You've been freezing this entire time and I can see it and I'm angry. And I'm just letting you know we only got 4 more blocks. That makes them feel safe. That gives them the motivation to finish strong for their friend. And I think that's the best approach. Conversely, I would love to ask you, how would you communicate it as the other person if you can tell I'm getting angry? Because I'm like, yo, I know you, like, let's say I don't have good EQ. Yo, why aren't you listening? You're not even really engaging with me anymore. What's going on? I'm trying to tell you about this thing. It's bothering the shit out of me. You're the only person I can talk to. And I'm talking to you and you're just checked out. What's going on?
Yeah, I think it's not too different than what you've like outlined initially, but something along the lines of like, I'm so sorry that you're seeing that I've checked out. Like it's not intentional. Like I care about you so much. I care about our friendship. Like this, because this means a lot to you, it means a lot to me. I just, as like who I am as a person, I want to continue showing up for you, but as you can see, I'm starting to shut down. And so I don't want this to progress. I don't want you to feel more upset and angry. I want you to feel safe as we can continue to have this conversation. And so for me, that means either I need to like take a break for a couple hours and we'll come back to it, or we'll come back to it tomorrow and we'll regroup on the same issue. So I think it's just setting that boundary of like, hey, I love you. I care about you. I see that you're getting angry and that's not what I want. And so like, let's
100%.
cut it where it's at and meet back up because the intention is good. Yeah.
The only thing that I love that. The only thing that I would add is the time thing. I'd throw that in there again. I would say, no, I mean like the time limit. So like, for example, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I want to show up for you. I need 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go for a walk. And also during that walk, for me to get a break, maybe you can you can articulate your thoughts because when I get back, I got like 5 or 10 more minutes left in me, right? Yeah. We just had lunch with Miss Kerr and like, she was like, her ex-husband used to tell her, babe, you got 300 words left. Like, I thought that was hilarious and so spot on because I would love somebody to say that to me. It would really put it into perspective for me. And that's the only thing that I would add in that. Yeah. Like maybe just give them a time limit in the same way that I was.
I just feel like if someone's angry, the time limit may not feel as good. But that's like hit or miss, and I think that's just again knowing the person.
And that's also why we took the break for you to go for the walk. But also, I'm guessing that they feel safe with you and would accept that. But you're right. I mean, it could land.
I think I'm just picturing this from like the anger perspective that we were going for. Like once I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking about myself. Like once I've reached like, I don't get angry super easily, but if I am at that level, time limits might not be the move. It might be like a complete.
Okay. That
could just be a me thing. I guess just know it could be either way.
Yeah, I think, again, relational intelligence is a thing. This has been an interesting episode, to say the least. This has been fun. And I don't feel fatigued at all. Do you feel fatigued?
No. I feel like we gave a lot of really, like, diverse examples, though. From, like, lighthearted to more serious. And I think the tools can be used at all different levels. And it's just about leveling up wherever you need to.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway on this episode and every episode of Words Matter, hopefully, is like we try to set the table of like a topic and dig into the topic for you to see it from multiple vantages. That's what we do. And then we try to offer 2 experiences. How can you recognize emotions around it and how can you articulate through your communication? And I think that this one specifically, we've done a really good job. I feel
think we checked the boxes.
I feel like we did it all. And now it's time to...
I guess if we didn't, you can talk shit.
Well, we could always just turn the lights out.